Good morning, Brian. It's Wednesday. So I just watched your last night's vlog about podcasts, and I got really excited, and so I decided that I would go ahead and record this really quickly to tell you about some other podcasts that I think you might be interested in. Like I said before, I'm super excited that you're into the podcast so much. You mentioned that it's basically supplanted all of your other auditory entertainment. You don't really listen to music when you're working as much. You listen to the podcast while you're working and in the car, and that was exactly the experience I had when I first started getting into podcasts. And so I'm super excited that you're sort of realizing that as well and enjoying it as much. So that's super awesome, and I want to do everything I can to help you find other shows that you really enjoy. I'm also really glad that you checked out the Overcast app. Overcast is really awesome. It's a lot more powerful than the default podcasts app. Not only can you do smart speed and also speed the podcast up faster than the regular podcast app will let you do, but also you can make different playlists which can have smart sorting filters. So you can say, okay, here's my normal playlist. I want it to only include these podcasts, or include all but exclude these podcasts. You can also tell it that you have priority podcasts, so you can say, okay, I want all these podcasts in this playlist, but if a new episode of this podcast comes up, I want it to go to the top of the queue instead of being in chronological order. So that's just really one neat thing about Overcast. You also don't have to worry about having to remember where you are because it keeps track of which episodes you played of shows and stuff like that. So that's also really cool. So now on to the main topic, podcasts. You mentioned that one of the things you liked best about Connect or Upgrade is that you are learning about how Jason sort of went from being a on the books employee at an actual company working for someone else and to becoming self-employed, and how that was really interesting for you. And Mike goes through the same thing. I don't know if he talks about it as much at the beginning of Upgrade or if he's a little bit behind Jason, but he also used to work for a formal company, and now his full-time job is managing Relay FM and doing podcasts. There's a couple other shows that I think you'd be interested in on the Relay FM network that are related to that. The first is called Free Agents. This one's relatively new, so there's only a few episodes out so far, but it's Jason Snell and another person, both of whom used to work for an actual company, for a corporation, and now are independent. And the whole focus of that show is about being self-employed, being a freelance employee, doing your own thing. So I think you'll really enjoy that as well. Also, another one is called Cortex, and that is Mike, the other host from Upgrade, and a YouTuber, CGP Grey, and it talks about a lot of things, but it does, especially at the beginning, heavily focus on how each of them works, how they get things done, how they track their time, and so that specifically talks about a lot of things that you mentioned. So that's another good one to check out. I know you mentioned that you were probably going to finish Upgrade before you move on to other ones, so I really hope that you're writing all of these recommendations down in one place so that you can refer back to them later. Moving forward, you did mention The Incomparable. That is another show Jason runs. That's actually a separate network, but like a sister network to Relay FM. Relay FM was started, Incomparable Network is different, but they share a lot of hosts on different episodes, and they're basically sister podcast networks. But The Incomparable is the title show on the Incomparable Network. There's a bunch of other ones, but a lot of the Incomparable shows tend to be more pop culture focused, about games and books and movies and entertainment, so that's really cool. I've recommended a number of podcasts from the Relay FM network as well for you to check out before, and I can't remember exactly which ones I recommended, but there are a lot of really good ones on there, and you can look back at old vlog episodes for other ones specifically that I've mentioned, but you mentioned Clockwise. That's a good one that has Jason Snell on it as well. I like Connected a lot. And there's just a couple. Top 4 is really fun. It's a little bit lighter. And then real quick, while I still have a little bit of time, another podcast that I really think you should check out is Lore. I think I've mentioned it before, but I really think you'd like it. It's really well done. It's about scary stories and ghost stories and history and stuff like that. So you should definitely check it out. It's very well produced, and it's definitely a really good example of how good a podcast can be. So I think that's it for this vlog, Brian. I hope I squeezed it in under 4 minutes, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I look forward to your Thursday Top 5 tomorrow. Have a good night, Brian.